We are live. Welcome to Easy to Read Deep Thoughts. And our episode for this week is The Majority is Wrong. My guest, Haley Baker, is going to join me at some point. She hasn't entered the studio yet. So uh, I would imagine I'm going to minimize this, allow her in, and then we are going to carry on the conversation at some point in this this live. My name is Jonathan Geyer. My first noteworthy note is I helped implement a health information exchange for the state of Minnesota. And in that opportunity, well, we were the most successful site in the country 3 years running. In that opportunity, I was able to sit down and drink a cup of coffee with 30 some odd thousand veterans. And that's a big deal. I bring it up every episode because it changed how I think, right? My willingness, my confidence, I suppose, in going live and doing this kind of stuff comes from all these interactions. It changed me. Yep. Okay. Second noteworthy note: I coach a boxing class, and we started putting our practices on YouTube. I was thinking when our class filled up, I figured similar to church service. If we can't go to church, we watch it. Well, we filled up, and we were turning people away, right? So we started putting it on YouTube, figuring watching at least might get some benefit, like an osmosis kind of thing. Well, whatever, that turned out to be a real big deal. We just crossed 630,000 views last night, which is awesome. People from around the world are watching our boxing practices, and yeah, they're getting value from it. Okay, let's dive right in. So this one is awesome. All right. So my originally scheduled guest wasn't able to make it this week, so I winged it. I decided to replace that guest with myself, and I chose to talk about I don't know, a previous. Oh, I just heard a beep. That's probably Haley. Yes. Oh my gosh. Awesome.
Hello.
Welcome, Haley Baker. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good timing. I was just about to dive into it. All I've done so far is introduce myself. So actually, I would say this is perfect timing. If you're willing to just dive right into it, please introduce yourself.
Perfect. Yeah. Hi, guys. I'm Haley Baker. I am the CEO of Medium for the Missing, and I'm glad to be here.
Perfect. I like it. So Haley and I met through the group alliances. We're entrepreneurs aligned. High five, David. Yeah. What could we all say about that? Wow.
Alliance. I'm the chairwoman for our connectors committee with alliances, and it was just a little shy of a year ago that I joined. Jonathan was one of the first people I connected with, but alliances has been such an integral part of the last
Oh
year
my
of my
God.
business and of my life. I've met people that have become family and great friends that are lifelong friends now. It's the business community that alliances is something that is beyond compare to anything else I've seen anywhere else.
Oh my God. 100% of the billionaires I'm now friends with came from the group alliances. Yeah. And I'm still working up the guts to invite David on. I've had some other people. It's gonna happen. Actually, I'm saying this out loud to pressure myself into bringing him on. Okay. What else do we got? Well, whatever. Let's dive right into it. So yeah. So my originally scheduled guest wasn't able to make it. Then I decided to insert myself into that slot, and I just chose one of my old topics, something I've already discussed, but I just think it's really cool, and I did get a lot of feedback from it the first time around, so I figured do it again. And then Haley and I were BSing over text messages, and I invited her on because this is an interesting conversation, and she jumped at the opportunity. So awesome. Yep. Alrighty. Oh, format of the show. So I write this newsletter just as like a template for conversation, as a guide for conversation. We don't have to read it at all. It doesn't really matter. I refer back to it when we run out of things to talk about, or if things start slacking or whatever. It's basically just to kind of keep things going. So with that being said, I read this a paragraph at a time. And Haley, even though I wrote this one, I'm still going to ask that you interrupt me and toss in your thoughts. Why? Because the whole point of this show is conversation. The article doesn't really matter. or it's secondary to robust conversation. That's a primary variable.
I'm all here for it.
I like it. Okay, well, let's dive right. Oh my god, I love this title. I was kind of patting myself on the back when I wrote it, and it's super gutsy. Yeah,
Yeah.
however you want to say it.
A lot of people aren't willing to go out of the bounds and say things like this and do things like this and really call out facts like this. And that's something that you and I have agreed upon since we first met. I'm doing that with my business and with where I'm going in my career. And so I'm excited for this topic.
Oh my gosh, you just said the word fact, and I've been beating up Einstein on Facebook a fair amount because, well, it's a predisposition to. I'm not sure how to say that, but there's a lot of holes in what Einstein says, and it's based on fact because reality is fact is not a fact. Is the glass half full or is it half empty? The factual statement requires that you have the glass and you have it half full of water, right? And that's where most people skew. It's a cognitive bias. It's a measurement bias. Like they actually try to figure out, is the glass factually half full? Is it factually half empty? Well, in this metaphorical example or whatever the term is, it doesn't matter. Like in the glass half full, half empty, that perception, kind of the perception of perception, it nullifies facts. And that's a big deal. That's like a mind-blowing deal. I would say the vast majority of the planet hasn't caught that part yet. And
I couldn't agree more. And a lot of our problems come from our perception. If we're not willing to look at all perspectives and kind of step out of the emotional attachment that we have to our own perception, then that's where a lot of our issues come. It wasn't until now the late Sherry and Shara actually kind of got it stuck in my brain of be the non-emotional observer, and that opened my perspective to so many more things.
My heart just dropped when you said that. I'm going to skip over, but it does make me sad. Like it took me back a little bit. Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to skip over it because I'm an empath, and that gets to me. Yes. What was I saying? I don't remember. The glass half full, half empty. Perception. Yep. Well, long story short, facts don't matter. Facts. It's an illusion. And actually, it's where I have this thought distilled down to ego. And it's ego. It's a sense. It's a requirement for the vast majority of humans to believe that they matter. Or that sounds negative, but it's like
it's not negative. It's the truth. It might be negative to anybody who feels like they are the center of attention and they have to have that matter. At the end of the day, all that matters is how much you matter to yourself, not to anybody else.
Yeah, and that's the interesting part. So tying it back in, people like to think that their thoughts matter, and actually not like to. They are skewed by default. Like knowing better doesn't change anything. So this is where I'm beating up Einstein, and I'm patting myself on the back because I'm winning. Yeah, and this is where it goes. There's all sorts of flaws in these mathematical equations, right? There's compromises along the way. Example, pi. We don't. Well, this is an easy to see example. We don't have an answer for pi, so all equations that involve pi, which is a lot, they're using a compromise because we don't have the full equation. That compromise is more significant than the output of the equation itself. Example, well, in statistics, you have the alpha variable. It's a 0.05. It's a thing that was a big deal when I was going through the Six Sigma black belt stuff. Yep. So that 0.05 is a big deal. And that's the point of where science says or statistics says it's significant above this point. It's not significant below this point. In my claim, this is where this is the flaw, is that what if you change that point of significance? Like, so if we say it's significant at 0.06 instead of 0.05 or 0.04 instead of well, it changes the output of the equation. And that's a big deal. Reverse engineering from that output of the equation back to the input of the equation itself. We are assuming, we are labeling the output of this equation as this is the universe. Like, so we do all these equations and we get that output. It's like, oh, that's how it works. Nope.
Jonathan, you are so sciencey right now, and I'm trying to follow along, but my brain is stopping. It's not working.
Are you passionate? Yeah.
Hey, I know, I love it. That's the thing. Get me talking about missing people. Get me talking about justice. Get me talking about mediumship. And I'm the same exact way. And so that's what I love about this and what you're doing on Fridays with your easy to read deep thoughts is you're able to not only show people's passions, but you can also be passionate about your own.
Well, you're my guest and I am all about you right now. So let's do that. Okay. Well, the majority is wrong. I'm going to touch on that, but then I'm going to go into what you do because your field of work or your field of interest is an outlier. It is not the majority. So I'm going to set the stage and then I'm going to turn it over to you, or I'm going to lift you up. I'm going to highlight you and give you an opportunity to. I'm going to set you up for awesomeness. Yes. Okay. Well, the majority is wrong. And I'm going to skip right over the article and I'm just going to summarize what this means. Okay. Picture a bell curve. I'm a visual thinker. I think in pictures rather than words. Yeah. Picture a bell curve. You have the mean. That's old information. That's what everybody accepts as true, right? And then you have the outliers, which is at the ends of the bell curve. That's where new information comes in. New information is not accepted by the majority. Why? Because it's new information. Yep. Well, my claim here, my point, and this is impossible to not be true, is based on the time, the chronological dependency from the outlier to the mean. The time it takes new information to be accepted that by the mean, by the majority, it takes time. It is not instantaneous. So what does the mean know? What does the majority know? It doesn't know the new information. Yep. So
I'm gonna stop you for 2 seconds. Have you heard of the backwards bicycle theory?
Ooh, no, but I like where this is going.
So my life coach actually showed me this a few days ago. There's a video on YouTube. It's the backwards bicycle. And this guy talks about how it took him 8 months to learn how to ride a backwards bicycle. And you'd think it'd be super easy because the thing is when you turn the steering wheel, when you turn the handles this way, the steering wheel goes the other way. And it was talking about the neuroplasticity of our own brains and our neural pathways and how long it takes to forge that. But then all of a sudden it clicks. And that's, as you get older, like the older you get, it's harder to change the way that your brain's going to think. And I think it applies kind of everywhere across the board. It can apply in addiction. It can apply in learning a new skill, learning how to do a new trade, learning how to work Excel better or work Google Sheets instead of Excel. You can kind of apply it to wherever you want. But once your brain has a neural pathway to go somewhere, once you hit over 25, especially because that's when your brain stops developing, it's harder to put into the new neural pathways. And so that's what I wanted to add to that because that was what that was reminding me
of. 2 points. First, whoa, I just accidentally hit a button on my computer and we're back. Okay, so 2 points. First off, I am over 25 and I have like a Benjamin Button thing going on. I am getting better per day. Like it's reversed. The older I get, the wittier and funnier I get. Yeah. Awesome. What was ironically, I don't remember what my second point was. Neuroplasticity. I coach a boxing class and I was talking about this last night. And I was referencing like Pavlov's dogs or conditioned response. Mm-hmm. But the neuroplasticity would be like the mechanical output of this mental process, and Pavlov's dogs or the conditioned response would be the mental part. And then the neuroplasticity would be the actual like this.
Right.
Yeah, the physical the physical response to that. Awesome. Yes. Where was I? I lost it already. So the majority has to be wrong. Okay. And my point is bell curve, all new information starts on the outlier because it's new information. It is not accepted. By time it works its way to the middle to the mean, to be adopted by the majority, well, there's new information. So the majority is always behind. It is always behind what's going on, just to make up numbers to make it easier to understand. Like if something new happens today, it might be a month before people consider it good or true or factual. Like there's a whole process. And actually this is one of the things I'm poking at Einstein with. And I'm choosing Einstein just just because I'm a boxer and it's fun. But this is one of the flaws in science as a whole because, I'm not going to go complicated here, but just a little bit. Science has the requirements of science is mutual adoption, right? And mutual adoption is the majority. So everything we're talking about now applies to the scientific process. It is always outdated. It is always outdated. And that's like logistical, but then you have the mental parts, the ego parts that we were talking about, where it amplifies it. It's like they're wrong by like a factor of 10. Yeah.
Well, and you see it with people that have like bipolar disorder, or they have, schizophrenia. Even the majority of their thoughts, the majority of their own processes that they have are wrong. And so when you take it from the outside perspective of what's wrong outside of me to what's wrong inside of me, that's what I like. That's what I thought when I first saw the title. I was like, yes, the majority on the outside is wrong. But then my brain immediately went to, okay, but what about my majority? What is my majority saying that's wrong?
Keep running with that. That just broke my mind a little bit. Keep going. That's awesome.
So, like for me, I had a very preconceived notion that law enforcement consistently always did what they needed to be doing with missing persons cases, and my brain couldn't wrap around the fact we had so many people missing. I didn't even realize how many people we had missing. And then I started working missing persons cases, and I kept getting cases after case after case where there was either law enforcement just wasn't doing their job, or they didn't have the resources, but they wouldn't accept the outside help. And I was like, okay, hold on. And so I started kind of talking about it. And I was finding that a lot of people outside were saying, no, this isn't right. But in my brain, I'm like, okay, but I see this. And so that was like an inner thing that I could do. Or with my own self, like for a long time, I believed that I was this, that, and this because I had gotten bullied in middle school. And I had a lot of negative self-talk. I didn't have a good self-esteem. So for years and years and years, I allowed myself to believe that I wasn't something that I really am. And once I finally realized, hey, the majority of my thoughts are wrong, I'm not this, that, and the other, I was able to shift out of that mindset and really show up for my true potential.
God, visual thinking, I'm picturing the process. You had to step outside of your body to look back inwards and realize that your internal thoughts were corrupt, or they were not good.
An ego death of sorts.
Ooh, what'd you just say? I missed
it. An ego death of sorts.
It's a thing. It's a thing. You and I have some awesome, some super awesome conversations. And this ego part is a big deal. It totally, a lot of the journeys that mental journeys I made in the boxing process align with what we're talking about now. I'm not sure how to label your stuff. Spiritual? No, that's all right.
Well, are you talking about like my
gifts? You have a dedicated episode, so let's just do a teaser here. Let's not go into it, and then we'll deep dive it on the next one.
Yeah. So for those of you that do not know, I am a psychic medium. I am a private investigator. I specialize in missing persons, and I work to bridge the gap between the cases that go missing in our justice system and the people that get wrongfully accused and wrongfully convicted, and then put into incarceration as an innocent person. And I work to change that so that we don't have wrongful conviction.
What was the
So there's your teaser of what I do.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Ingo Swan. What was
the spiritual side of it? Me being a medium.
Yeah, they all go together. And okay, let's tie this back, because this is all working out. The majority is wrong. The majority says that stuff is not true. Well, the majority is wrong. Like it's wrong. It can't be not wrong. And that's an ego thing too. Yeah.
Well, it's not only an ego thing, it's been kind of instilled in our brains. When we look back over different societies and look back at history, the Egyptians, the Mayans, they all practiced, they all believed in deities, they all believed in spiritual gifts, and people that were a medium, they were sought out. They were the oracles. You can see, you can go visit these temples in Greece. And it wasn't until the Roman era came that kind of went underground and started to be outlawed. And so then it got instilled in us for centuries, basically, that, this was something bad. And now in today's day and age, it's only been of the last probably 3 or 4 decades that it started to come out of the woodworks, and it's still coming out of the woodworks. But I get a lot of feedback on people, and sometimes I've been blocked by people who have kids missing because I reach out and I say, "Hey, I'm a medium, like I would love to help at no charge to you. Like I'm just being called to this. If you're open for it, I'd love to set up a time to chat." And then I'll be like, they'll get, "Nope, don't want any help. Voodoo woman," or things like that. And I'll get, instantaneously shut down. And that's, that's okay. That's on them. I won't touch it further. But then there's also people who are open to it and they don't follow what the majority says. They realize that the taboo of mediums working those kind of cases, if they're real, they're real. If they're not, they're not, because there are people out there that do say they're a medium and they're not. They play off of your emotions, they play off your facial expressions, they understand body language and human psychology so deeply that they're able to watch your body language and know if they're going in the right direction or not. And so it's, the majority is wrong about mediumship 100%, but the majority is misinformed. And that's the problem.
Okay. Well, ironically, it is impossible for the majority to be not misinformed. That's
Yep.
that's the summation of my point here. Impossible. It will never not be true. That is a blanket statement I stand behind because, and it's the logistical point. It's like it can't. Yeah. Oh my God, I love these conversations. Back
Well,
to.
you
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
if you look at how the majority is always going to be misinformed, you have to start looking at why are we being misinformed and where do I go to find the actual resources and find the data and find the facts. And so if you question every single thing, every single belief that you have and do the research for yourself, you'll come to find out why you're wrong.
We could hey, deep thoughts. Let's I want to dip a toe into a rabbit hole a little bit there. Like right
Yep.
or wrong is subjective. And where I'm currently at, my ideology, my perception of the world is probabilistic, right? So when you say right or wrong, fact or not fact, where I'm at, and this is super challenging to describe to anybody else. It's you are right and wrong at the same time. It is dual. It's not dualistic. It's simultaneous. It's probabilistic. Everything is everything at all points in time, right? And that what's that?
As above, so below. As
Ooh,
within, so without.
oh my God! I read that song. Yeah, yeah. That comes up frequently in the stuff that I read. Yes. No, I lost it. I'm trying to stay out of the. I'm like jacked up to go into the deep
Let's do it.
scientific portions on here.
Let's do it. I will challenge your scientific portions with my non-scientific brain.
Yeah, but I'm picking fights with science also. And everybody. I'm picking fights with everybody, really. Just because it's funny.
I'm just defying science. I'm defying the things that science says isn't impossible.
Actually, okay, that works. That's where I'm at. I love science. Science, I love you. It's fun. This is yep. It's the ego. Actually, let me take the science out of that because I'm uncomfortable. Like I love science. Yeah. I am that nerd. Let's put that the ego. Humans ego is actually what I take a little joy in poking holes at. Probably because of getting beat up in school. Yeah.
Hey, I get it. I'm the same way.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the ego, like, and this is apparent in science. It's apparent in, it's everywhere you possibly look, and that's the ego. It's the confidence that I'm right because I am blinded to all the ways that I might be wrong. And I want to use the label entropy, but mentally I'm beyond entropy. I'm in a different spot, but entropy, just for others to understand, like entropy says that it's impossible for you to be 100% confident, right? In statistics, Six Sigma, that's a big thing. You're never 100%, right? But the reality is you're not even 1%. It's impossible to have the percentage like, oh, hey, this is my claim. This, when I'm poking holes in science, this is where it goes. Like, in order to come up with these discrete equations, you have to eliminate all sorts of other stuff. Like we don't factor in numbers or weight, an amount of dark matter into our equations, right? But like the leading theory is that it exists, and here it is. We just can't measure, and that's a measurement bias. So we are not including a measure for what we don't know into the equations that we're claiming that we know. Which means if you go, that's going forward. Now go backwards. It means that we don't actually know, but we still know, and it's a level of depth onto the definition of these open. Now I'm going deep science. Well, whatever. If they kind of work, it's good enough, and that's how science works. It's not absolute. It kind of works. Done. Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing is then you look at, what other scientific, equations do we have? Time. Time's not real. I do not believe time is real. I mean, time is real. Time is real because we're told it's real, but it's just a thing that we're counting. It's a measurement that we're making. Who really sat down and decided that I'm going to do this equation to decide there's 24 hours in a day? What if it was 3 days in one? The sun comes up, that's one day. Moon comes out, that's another day. We've never considered those things. And I think that that's the nice thing about science is always open to being tested. Science is always open to being, a new theory being created. Your control has to be what this is. And then you have to take your options. And
it's the best we got. Yep.
Yeah, that's the best we've got. It's 2025 and the best we've got is science, but we also have real life experience. And you touched on there is, on this, there is no right or wrong, there is no facts. My personal belief is that a fact is something that I can tangibly see, experience, or, do. So if I can physically see that, like, this coin is a 1972 penny, I can't say that's a fucking, sorry, pardon my French. Pardon my French. Yeah, right? I'm working on it. I can't say that it is a quarter from 2002. I have to say, no, this is the 1972 penny. And so that's one of those things where fact and fiction play a part. How many of my thoughts are fact or fiction? How many of my behaviors are fact or fiction? And unless you are physically stating that this is a fact, and it's not really because you can't experience it outside of yourself, it's not something within, then it's not really a fact.
Oh my God. This is you're walking into something I spend a lot of time at or on. So the constraint, the bottleneck of this fact illusion, and I'm saying this in general, not specific to what you were just saying, but the bottleneck where the process breaks is your brain. Humans are the flaw, not the science part. So science says that we can have facts. The kicker is humans are flawed. And who observes the scientific data? Who observes, who reads, who comprehends the scientific data? It's humans, right? So when we say fact, it's fact. You can't have facts in a vacuum. And that's the problem. Like a human being still has to look at that fact. And the human being is where everything goes to heck, right? Because what'd you say? 19. Oh, I missed it. Well, what'd you say? 1972 quarter? Well,
yeah,
maybe
1972 penny.
1972 penny. Okay.
Yep.
Well, maybe you have some trauma in your childhood that makes you see the number 72 as the number 73. Right, like it's some cognitive bias. It's you or it's the perceiver, not the facts. This is, I haven't used this metaphor too much, so it might suck.
I like it, except for unless you have dyslexia, I find it very hard to believe you're going to see the 2 and the 3 different. I do have dyslexia, so I can understand seeing numbers wrong, but I think on the perception basis, if you use like an example of this conversation, somebody might perceive my F-bomb as me being uneducated and a low life or things like that, whereas they can't see it for maybe I'm frustrated because science.
Wow, you lost me on that, but I like where this is going. I love this conversation.
The perception. So for me, I know why I dropped my F-bomb. That was because I was frustrated because my brain's trying to wrap itself around science and I couldn't come up with the word quarter. So that for me is my own perception, but other people might perceive it as bad. Somebody might perceive it as funny. That's where perception comes into play. Now I understand what you're saying though with the scientific data of somebody looking at a data set that's put in front of them and perceiving it wrong. but the outcome of an equation is going to be the same whether I do it or you do it, as long as we do it correctly. So that's my argument for perception on scientific data.
Yes. Yes.
But I'm not seeing like scientific data as in like a research study on like um elevated blood count and a low, you know, a low magnesium, what the cause and effect is for, you know, that kind of scientific data. I'm seeing it as equations and numbers more on a mathematical scientific standpoint.
Yeah. This is a very robust thought in my mind. And yeah. Okay. This is a future episode that I've been kicking around in my mind that I haven't written an article for yet, but like a telescope. Here's a metaphorical example. If I have a telescope and I'm looking at the universe, let's say I have a fingerprint, a smudge, kind of like the Hubble. If I had a smudge on the lens of this telescope and I was looking at a galaxy out there, what if I didn't know that my telescope was smudged? I would assume that what I'm seeing is how the universe works.
Yeah.
I would assume that galaxy looks all blurry, right? And this is an exaggerated example. It is not it's not a factual thing to to analyze on its discrete variables. It's a high level description. What I am proposing that all scientific measurements are smudges. And basically the summation of that is we are measuring the inside of our telescopes. We're not measuring the universe. Our output is the output is a result of the inputs, right? And the inputs are our scientific measurements, kind of like the equations. You know, that's a Six Sigma. Yep. So you change the equations, you change the output. And here's the big part. What does that mean? Are we measuring the universe, or are we measuring the inside of our telescopes? Are we measuring our equations? We assume that our equations are measuring the universe. Not true. Not true in any way, shape, or form. We are measuring the output of our equations and just saying, hey, that's the universe. Nope. It's not. Like the universe could be completely different and we just don't know it because our tools don't do it. It's a measurement bias. Yeah.
Yes, I will clap for that one, because yes, that's so true. And you know, that's where we lead back to perception. We lead back to ego. It all comes down to, you know, like the time thing. I'm just going to bring it up because it's relative, because I saw it this morning. With time, the person who decided that this is how we measure time, maybe they were having a bad day. They didn't have enough coffee or something. And so they allowed themselves to miscalculate one singular number. And that in turn has led us to believe that all these, you know, crazy catastrophic things are going to happen. But really, that's not going to happen because of it. But what if the one equation that time is the reason for that? And it has outlined all of these other things.
That's what I'm getting at. Yep.
Yeah, that's exactly what you're saying. Now it clicks. It clicked.
You know, and I've had a lot of time to think about this. It comes to like a measure of depth. We are over time, but oh my God, this is a cool conversation. An example of the measurement of depth, and this is perception. This is us perceiving our universe and assuming that it's the same for everybody else. It's not. It's not. Everybody's individual. We're all experiencing the universe individually. But a measure of depth on the very top, a depth of definition. That's what I meant to say. On the very top, like let's say you and I are both humans. It is true, but it is only true on the highest level of definition. We are both human beings. Yes. Right. But now you're a woman. I'm a guy. We do different things. So are we the exact same human? No, we are not. We are different. So you go down on the definition of being human. Right. Mm-hmm. So everybody's like, hey, we're all human. Not true. But simultaneously, probabilistically, it is true. It's the measure of depth. When you say we're all human, what are you talking about? Because we are not the same, but we are still the same. And this is just an easy to see example, but that applies to everything everywhere. That is a blanket statement. It is all true. And the kicker is that is so complicated. It's useless. It's useless to think like that. And that's how our brains are orientated. Like it's how it actually works is so complicated that it's useless. It's not usable. Kind of like scientific equations, like E equals MC squared. It's not 1,000%. It's not, I just spit. It's not 100%. It's not 100% true, but it's mostly true, or it's good enough kind of true. Like all science is just good enough, right? Because,
Yep.
and that it's easy to say it because every year we learn new stuff, and that's a big deal. What's that mean? That means the year before we didn't know everything, and then the year before we didn't know that, and then if you're speaking of time, if you're able to chronologically step into the future a little bit, what today are we confident about that's wrong tomorrow? And then work backwards. How confident should you be today? Not very, not very at all. Unless we're talking about a level of definition and we're both humans.
Yeah. So the key takeaway from this is we're all wrong.
Like it.
We're all right.
It's real. And
And
right.
open your perspective. Be willing to step outside of the box and to test those theories, test the things that you believe are true. That's my takeaway. Any belief that I have, anything that I can't prove, that I can't touch, that I can't taste, that I can't smell, that I can't see or hear, test it.
I like it. That's a good one. And then the output being aware of how ego is not something you can turn off. It does ego and yourself, individualism are the same thing. Or
Well, and everybody has an ego, but people can go through an ego death or a type of psychic change, if you will. And they can, once you kind of shed away, we get brought up in certain environments that change the way that we all behave. And so once you're willing to do that introspection and you're willing to look and see, okay, maybe me seeing, this kind of familial relationship isn't how everybody else's families work. Maybe I should see where that affects this, that, and the other within myself. That's when your ego death can happen. And it's painful to sit there and have to kind of call yourself out on all of the bad things that you are. But we all have bad in us. You're not alone in that.
It's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's uncomfortable. And the majority opinion is none of us like to be uncomfortable. And that's correct. But
for good reasons. Like it makes sense. Like, yeah.
Yeah. But then you also look at the majority of people that have had an ego death and have been uncomfortable, or they choose the uncomfortable because they know it's the better route. And that majority is right. So it's a ever ongoing conversation that I think we could probably give 100 more examples of. Either way, I'm happy to be wrong and right.
That's which goes back to the probabilistic. Like you change the inputs, you change the output, right? Which actually let's end it with that. That is a good one. That is my point here, where the majority is wrong. The majority is egotistical or heavily skewed towards the egotistical portion, where they think it actually works the way that we say it works. And every year we learn that it doesn't work the way we say it works. Like you grow because whatever your current state is not optimum, right? Like it's progression requires that the current state is wrong. Yeah.
Yep.
It just doesn't feel good.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure. I again apologize for my F-bomb. You gotta have a little bit of a laugh, right?
I like it. Hey, plug. Did I pick a time? So our episodes in 2 weeks. Plug your service. I haven't come up with we haven't picked a title yet, or if we have, I forgot it. For our upcoming episode, but let's plug it here.
Yeah, I can't remember what we picked for the title. Yeah, I'm stoked to come on. We are going to talk about what is true justice. And where it applies kind of everywhere. I think that's going to be an amazing conversation. And we're also going to dive a little bit into the spiritual side of things, the missing person side of things, and how it's able to blend. As far as I know, that's kind of what we're going to do. But if you
like every part of that.
Yeah. If you want to find me, you can find me on Facebook as Medium for the Missing, and go ahead and send me a friend request on there. You can find me here on LinkedIn. I'm tagged in the article and in the post. Otherwise, you can reach me at mftm.site. That is my current website, or haley.mftm@gmail.com.
Oh my God. Awesome episode for everybody watching. I look forward to you joining us again next Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern. Have a great day. Thank you all.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Awesome.